Okay, so it's a pleasure to be with you and to go from the kind of very old sciences to something a little more modern. Neurogastronomy, gastrophysics, as some might call it, kind of just around for a decade or so. It's one of the newest sciences. And it's all about the brain, how we perceive the world around us, and how I think the really big idea is how knowing how the brain works is going to help chefs and food companies in the years to come design better tasting, healthier, more enjoyable, more memorable sensory treats to put in here. And I'll start just with this. This is a dish. And our brains are built to kind of perceive, to search out foods, to find the ripe fruits from the treetops. Our brains are designed to think that, well, redness goes with sweetness. And so when we see this chef-created scoop of something in front of us, within the blink of an eye, within 100th of a second, our brain has decided what we think that is, whether we think it's sweet or not, probably sweet, yes. What flavor, maybe like a strawberry or a raspberry or a red berry ice cream. Yes, I'd love it. It's probably not so good for me, but maybe just a scoopful later, and then I have to work it off tomorrow. All that's happened in a blink of an eye as our brain perceives the world around us and sets expectations about what food is good, tasty, enjoyable, and nutritious. And this is actually a dish created by Heston Blumenthal, one of the world's top chefs who works just outside Oxford. But the thing is, it's not sweet, it's savory. It's a frozen salmon mousse. Very popular in the UK a century ago, not so today. And no matter how much effort has been put into making that dish, if you serve it to someone and they're led by their eyes to expect something sweet, it'll taste horrible. It will taste very salty, you won't like it at the time, and you will not like it 2 weeks later when you know what it really is, but you can't get out of your mind your first experience of the food. And it was dishes like this that really got Heston Blumenthal interested in not just the science of the kitchen, but the psychological science of neurogastronomy, gastrophysics. And so as a psychologist working in Oxford, when I see dishes like these, all from the Fat Duck restaurant in Bray, 3 Michelin stars, some years the best in the world, each one of those dishes is an experiment waiting to be done, an experiment waiting to be eaten. We have such things as the triple cooked chips, ubiquitous now around the world in every gastropub. Where they come from, why, I don't know. We've got the green thing on the left, snail porridge, a whole dish about kind of putting two words that don't belong together, snails and breakfast cereal, and then colouring it bright green. That's a whole kind of psychology of food naming and how it impacts on our experience. Through the beetroot and orange jelly when you might be misled by your eyes, or the bacon and egg ice cream in the top right, each one of those dishes is an experiment waiting to be done, or the results of a psychological experiment done in the past. So while from 1984 through maybe 2014, in the last 3 decades, the science of the culinary arts has primarily been in the kitchen. It's been new cooking techniques, roto-vap, sous vide, all that kind of stuff. It's been new ingredients, stabilizers from around the world. All science has been in the kitchen. For the next 3 decades and maybe beyond, I think the science and the scientific revolution in dining and food will be at the front of house, around the dining table, as we come to understand more about the mind of the diner, how it works, and how knowing how this works can help us design better tasting foods. Now, I would love to give you all a scoop of one of these dishes. We do have a professional chef working in the psychology lab in Oxford, but I think health and safety and the building regulations will not allow any of those dishes to be consumed here. What we have instead is just some little treats. So you should all have a jelly bean. And this is maybe one of the easiest ways to start thinking about the amazing, magical world of flavor and how neuroscience, gastrophysics can help. What I want you to do is take your jelly bean, just place it on your tongue. Don't start chewing yet. That's so. And then hold your nose closed as if you're going underwater, so you can't let any air in or out. And then just start chewing on your jelly bean. Keep your nose closed all the time. Just chew, chew, chew. And think about your experience in mouth. What you should get will be sweetness, maybe some sourness. That's about it, nothing else. Then let go of your nose and breathe, and suddenly you get that wow. You get flavor. You get the fruity, the strawberry, the burnt, the chocolatey, the coffee, all those rich aromatics that we experience in our mouths, so we think we must be tasting them. In fact, are all coming from our nose and ventriloquized, like at the cinema, back into our mouth where we feel the action happening. So the world of flavor and flavor objects is not often as it seems. Our brain is combining all the senses, doing so in ways that we do not realize, and only giving us the results And that's kind of why when we have a cold, we say, I've lost my sense of taste. No, you haven't. All a cold will do is interfere with the olfactory functioning of your nose. Your taste buds are just fine. It's kind of an illusion happening all the time in our experience. And that kind of ventriloquism of smells into the mouth to give us flavors that we enjoy is all about neuroscience. It's all about the combining of the senses. We can understand that illusion best by looking in the brain and seeing how one sense connects with another. And that's our daily kind of bread and butter in the lab in Oxford, is seeing how when we change what something looks like, it can change what it smells like. If I change what something smells like, it may change what it tastes like. And if I change what it tastes like, it may change what something else feels like. The senses are all the time combining, and neuroscience is giving us some of the rules of sensory integration. Easiest to study in the lab with hearing and vision, but then we can think about playing them back in the restaurant. Take a look at the face on the left. And think about what is going in your ears. What do you hear going in your ears? You should hear a bar, a bar, a bar. Now look at the face you see on the right and think about what's going in your ears. It's a da, maybe a da. And now whenever you look to the left, you hear one thing in your ears, bar. Whenever you look to the right, it changes, it's da. The sound must always be the same one. If you close your eyes, you can hear it's really a muffled bar. Bar, there, got it. Open your eyes, look at the face on the right, and you cannot prevent your brain from combining what it sees and what it hears and telling you those two people are saying different things. That's the power of neuroscience, the power of multisensory integration happening there on the screen. It's called the Mcgurk Effect. Lots of nice examples on the web. And I've been watching that guy for 20 years now, and I still cannot stop my brain combining the senses and telling me he's saying something different. So I know my brain's playing tricks on me, and yet I can't override it. Okay, that was two people speaking to us, but exactly the same sort of thing happens on the plate. This is where things get really exciting. So this is Chef Ferran Adria, formerly of El Bulli in Spain, and we've been in work with him applying the gastrophysics in his test kitchen at Alicia Foundation just outside of Barcelona. And here we have what looks like a strawberry dessert. Well, it is really a frozen strawberry dessert. You can relax. Sweet, fruity, very nice. We serve that dessert in the restaurant and in the test kitchens. Half the diners eat the dessert from the plate on the left. Half the diners eat the food from the plate on the right. You rate how sweet it is, you rate how intense the fruity flavor, and how much do you like that ice cream right now, right here, maybe even how much would you pay. All from the same batch, but the thing is, we don't perceive it the same way. Just as in the Mcgurk Effect, when we change what we see, we change what we hear. Here, when we change the color of the plate, we change the taste of the food. Plates shouldn't have a taste, and yet they do. And if you had the dessert from the white plate here, you would say it was 10% sweeter, 15% more flavorful than exactly the same batch of ice cream served on a black plate. 10% more sweetness with no calories. Just think about the implications for health of keeping our favorite flavors the same, but using some of the gastrophysics to reduce some of the unhealthy ingredients by playing tricks in the mind. That's the potential and the power of this kind of approach. And from there, it's not just the color of the plate. I could tell you about the shape of the plate, that matters too. Or I could tell you about the color of the light bulbs. That should not have a taste. The red light in the room in which those people are drinking, in this case, a glass of red wine served from a black tasting glass. But it does. If people are drinking a wine, rating how fruity, how fresh that wine is, how much do they enjoy it, how strong the flavor, then if we turn the room lights to green, the wine changes its taste. Here it doesn't change its color because the wine is in the black tasting glass. You can't see it. But simply by changing the ambient lighting, we can add about 15 to 20% more fruitiness or freshness to the wine. Red lights fruity, green lights with fresh. So now for demonstration number 2. You all have a extreme sour hard candy. So you can open it up. Don't put it in your mouth just yet. Open it up. All have it at the ready to insert on instruction. And what I want you to do when I say give the magic words, to put that in your mouth. Again. Leave it there. So on the count of 3, put it in your mouth. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that, if you wanted to know, was a mathematically transformed Argentinian tango designed to deliver a sour taste through music. Music, do they have a taste? Is it like plate color, lighting color? Yes, it is. But together, why this thing tastes so sour and how we can enhance the sourness through the music we play, let's just take a step back and think about this. The humble potato chip, or for experimental purposes, the Pringle, because every Pringle is the same size, shape, and texture. I can bring 100 undergraduates, weirdos as we call them, Western-educated, intelligent, rich and democratic young boys and girls, into the lab, put them in a box so they can't escape, and then feed them one by one 180 Pringles, 2 tubs. We give them a spittoon, you bite into it. How crisp and crunchy is it now? You crunch away, rate it on a scale. You can spit it out or you can swallow. Some of our undergraduates will eat 2 tubs within an hour, just like that. 2 tubes, I should say. And what we do each time the person bites into a Pringle, we change the sound that they hear. Sometimes we make the crispy, crunching sound really loud, sometimes quiet. Sometimes we boost certain frequencies just around 2 kilohertz. And every time you're saying, was this from today's pack of freshly opened Pringles or from yesterday's or the one you opened a few days ago? Judging freshness, crispness, staleness, how much you'd like the thing. And what we find in the weirdos and in also trainee chefs is that by changing the sound of the crunch, we think we're feeling that crunch in our mouth, but really we're hearing it by and large. And if we change the sound you hear, we can bring about 15% more crispness, crunchiness, and freshness to that dry food product simply by understanding how the senses combine. And this kind of test, on the one hand, gets us ignominy in the IG Nobel for Nutrition in 2008. Silly stuff. You think, why on earth would anybody change the sound of a Pringle? What's the point of that? Well, the point is that now Nestle, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, and Kellogg's all use this psychological test in-house when they're thinking about innovating for new food products. Because if you want to try out a new product, traditionally you'd have to bake it, make it, go to the kitchens, try it, it didn't work, make something new. Innovation was very slow. Here we can try the whole of sound space, every possible sound Pringle or potato chip might make, see which one you like, and then go to the kitchens and say, bake me that one. Not always will the chef be able to make it, but sometimes they can, and innovation is much faster as a result. Applying the psychological science in foods that we eat. And when Heston Blumenthal came to the lab with Albert Adria, Ferran's younger brother, we were giving people our crisps. We put them in the box, we gave them the Pringle, we changed the sound, it changed the taste. And you could see, yes, and he was so excited by this psychological insight that he went back to the Fat Duck in Bray. And it took a year or two, but this is how he embodied that science in a dish, which is, I think, it's called the Sound of the Sea seafood dish. It's been the signature dish on the menu now for about 7 years. And it's all about showing the diner how important what we hear is to what we taste. The dish comes to the table looking like the sea, with foam and seaweed and sand and seafood hopefully hidden away. And on the other hand, the diner comes with a conch shell out of which dribble some iPod headphones. The waiter says, we recommend you put the headphones in before you eat the food. When you put those headphones in, you hear what you've just heard, the sounds of the sea, the seagulls swirling overhead, and we have the evidence to demonstrate that seafood on the outskirts of Bray, not a very nice place in outskirts of London, a long way from the seaside, will taste significantly better with those kind of atmospheric sounds. In a way, resolving one of those long-held kind of problems about why wine always tastes so good when you're on holiday, the Provençal rosé paradox. Our experience of what's in the glass is partly conditioned by the place in which we drink it or eat it and those who we are with. And that's been captured there for the first time, I think, bringing technology to the table and enhancing the dining experience. And I think we're not all going to be lucky enough to go to the Fat Duck or one of the other 3 Michelin-starred restaurants. But what starts there, the best of the scientific ideas that start there will work their way down to the high street, to the corner restaurant, and then to the home environment before we know it. The Heston Blumenthals, the 3 Michelin-star chefs, are the Formula One of the kitchen with the creativity to turn the neuroscience into something desirable, talked about, and remembered. And this is how the Sound of the Sea kind of transformed to the high street restaurant in London, the House of Wolf in North London. Here we have somebody with their mobile device, the thing that normally distracts us from food and drink. And they're eating a bitter-sweet chocolate lolly. And sometimes they hear a sound like this while they're eating the dessert. You might think, is that a bitter sound? Is it a sweet sound? Is it sour? Is it salty? What is it? What taste is that sound? Other times they might listen to this instead. might think, is this a sweeter sound than the last one, or is it more bitter? We've tested these sounds around the world, and about 95% of people will say that sound is significantly sweeter than the lower-pitched one you heard before. So what's happening here is, I think, remarkable in that these diners are using their technology to change the taste of the food. If we play the sweet soundtrack, we can make that dessert 10% sweeter. If we play the bitter-sounding music, we can bring out the bitterness of the dark chocolate instead. Sonic or digital seasoning, if you will, here again in the corner restaurant, and it's now coming to the high street brands and store purchases very soon through sensory apps. And this is kind of a synesthesia, if you will, a crossing of the senses between sound and taste. And I'll leave you, I think you've got a couple of other things to try. 2 bits of chocolate. You can eat them in any order that you like. Just unpeel one bit of chocolate, look at the scale you see here, and think about, where would you put the taste of that chocolate on this shape scale? So I've got my milk chocolate here, put it in, and put a mental mark on the line between booba on the left and the kiki shape you see on the right. Feels strange, feels kind of weird, but just put a mental mark on that line. Then try the same with the other piece of chocolate, noting which one's darker chocolate and which one is lighter of the two that you try. Try the chocolate, put a mark on the line. And what we find everywhere in the world, apart from in rural cocoa land in northern Namibia, is that people will say milk chocolate is kind of round. Dark chocolate, high in cocoa, is more angular instead. So sweetness goes with roundness, bitterness goes with angularity. And hence, if you want to make foods taste sweeter, make them rounder. We were in print saying that in 2011. And just wrapping up here, bringing this kind of finding back to the real world. We can't all go to those fancy restaurants, but the insights from those restaurants can be applied to make foods better for us. Here we have the Dairy Milk bar, England's equivalent to the Hershey chocolate. Usually comes in an angular-shaped bar. Last year, the company figured out they could shave off 3.9 grams from the weight by just rounding off the corners of the pieces. They made the chocolate rounder, and what did people phone in to complain about? You are making our chocolate sweeter. What are you doing to our favorite brands? Then the guy from Mondelez International says, no, we have not changed the formula one bit. It's identical to what it was before. All we've done is change the shape, and yet by changing the shape, we've increased the sweetness. Just imagine what would happen if sugar wasn't so cheap. You could have reduced the sugar content, increased the roundness, kept the percept in the mind of the public the same, and made a healthier product as a result. So for me, applying science, neuroscience, through gastrophysics and neurogastronomy to the foods we eat and drink is a really exciting new area of science. It's one that's great fun to do because you get to eat at some of these restaurants, and I believe the insights about how the mind combines what we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, in the first instance will help to make some of the world's top chefs create more stimulating dishes than ever before. And in the long run, I'm really hopeful that we can make some small contribution to kind of the epidemic of obesity by using these psychological tricks in order to fool the mind into tasting the sweetness, the saltiness, and the fat that may actually be reduced because we know how the brain really works. Thank you very much.